My son sold half our ranch, the land his father died building. 40 years of sweat, gone with a single phone call. But he doesn't know, buried beneath this soil lies a secret worth millions, and a mother's lesson he'll never forget. So, before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country's name in the comments, and don't forget to like the video if you love true emotional stories. Now, let's begin The Forgotten Ranch. The sun hung low over the vast Montana plains, casting long shadows across the dusty ranch that had been my home for nearly 5 decades. At 68, my hands were calloused from years of toil, but they moved with practiced ease as I mended the barbed wire fence along the eastern boundary. The air was crisp with the scent of sagebrush and distant pine, the kind of autumn chill that whispered of impending winter snows blanketing the big sky country. Golden aspens quivered in the breeze, their leaves rustling like forgotten secrets. My ranch, Hayes Hollow, sprawled across 500 acres of rolling hills, dotted with grazing cattle and the occasional pronghorn antelope bounding through the tall grass. Mornings started before dawn, feeding the horses in the weathered barn, checking water troughs that often froze overnight, and hauling hay bales that seemed heavier with each passing year. I paused to wipe sweat from my brow, my faded denim shirt clinging to my skin. The old ranch truck, a rusted Ford from the 80s, sat idle nearby, its bed still littered with tools from yesterday's repairs. It was more than a vehicle. It was a relic of my life with Caleb, my late husband. We'd bought it together after our wedding, dreaming of building a legacy here. But Caleb had died young, thrown from a bucking bronco at the Miles City Rodeo when Travis was just a boy of 8. I'd raised our son alone ever since, pouring every ounce of love and grit into keeping this land alive. Travis had been my world, curly-haired and full of mischief, helping with chores until his teens, when the lure of the wider world pulled him away. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a rare intrusion in this remote corner where cell service was spotty at best. It was Travis. My heart lifted. We hadn't spoken in months. "Mom," his voice crackled through, hurried and distant. "I sold the old ranch truck and half the land. Needed the cash for my startup in Silicon Valley. You'll be fine in a trailer, plenty of space left for you and the animals." The words hit like a stampede. I gripped the fence post, splinters digging into my palm. "Travis, what? You can't just..." "Gotta go, Mom. Investors waiting. Love you." Click, the line went dead. I stood there, the phone slipping from my hand into the dirt. 40 years of sacrifice flashed before me, sleepless nights nursing sick calves, scraping by during droughts that turned the pastures to dust bowls, all while instilling in Travis the value of hard work. And now this. Betrayal burned in my chest, hot and unrelenting. But as I knelt to pick up the phone, my mind drifted to the envelope Caleb had left in our safe deposit box, discovered after his funeral. "For when times get tough," his note had said. Inside were deeds to mineral rights, oil beneath our land, potentially worth millions. I'd kept it secret, a safeguard against the ranch's uncertain future. Tears welled, but I blinked them away. The wind picked up, carrying the lowing of cattle from the valley below. Neighboring ranches, like the Thompsons spread to the west, faced similar hardships. Old Jeb Thompson had stopped by last week, griping about low beef prices at the local co-op meeting. We'd shared coffee on my porch, overlooking the Missouri River breaks where eagles soared on thermals. "Times are changin', Ellie," he'd said. "Kids don't see the beauty in this life anymore." As dusk fell, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I trudged back to the modest ranch house. The creaky screen door slammed behind me. Inside, the kitchen smelled of fresh-baked bread. I'd kneaded the dough that morning, a ritual that grounded me. But tonight, solitude weighed heavy. Travis's room upstairs remained untouched, posters of tech gadgets yellowing on the walls. He'd left for college a decade ago, chasing dreams of innovation far from these dusty trails. I sank into Caleb's old armchair by the wood stove, flames crackling as I stoked the fire. Emotions swirled, anger at Travis's callousness, sorrow for the boy I'd lost, and a flicker of resolve. He didn't know about the oil. Perhaps this was his lesson, hard-earned. Outside, the first stars pierced the velvet night and coyotes yipped in the distance. Montana's vastness had always reminded me of life's impermanence, but also its enduring strength. I whispered a prayer for guidance, wondering if roots could mend what ambition had torn asunder. Winter's grip tightened on Hayes Hollow, snowdrifts piling against the barn like silent sentinels. I rose at 4 a.m., bundling in layers of wool and flannel before stepping into the biting cold. Frost crunched under my boots as I broke ice on the stock tanks, steam rising from the water like ghosts of warmer days. The landscape transformed, the rolling hills now a sea of white, broken by skeletal cottonwoods along the creek. Elk tracks crisscrossed the fields, a reminder of the wild heart beating beneath the ranch's surface. Chores were relentless, shoveling paths, distributing supplemental feed to the herd, and repairing wind-damaged fences that groaned under the weight of accumulated snow. My thoughts often wandered to flashbacks of happier times, especially on days like this when isolation pressed in. I remembered meeting Caleb at a county fair in Billings, his easy smile and strong hands drawing me in. We were young, barely 20, when we eloped and bought this land with a small inheritance. "This is our forever, Ellie," he'd said, as we stood on the porch watching the first spring thaw, wildflowers blooming in riots of color, Indian paintbrush and lupin carpeting the meadows. Travis arrived 2 years later, a squalling bundle that filled our home with joy. Flashbacks flooded me as I milked the few dairy cows we kept. Caleb teaching toddler Travis to ride a pony, the boys' laughter echoing across the pastures. "Hold tight, son. Like this," Caleb would demonstrate, his rodeo scars a badge of honor. Summers were golden idols, picnics by the river, where trout leaped in crystal waters, and evenings around campfires sharing stories of Montana's pioneers. But tragedy struck swiftly. The rodeo accident replayed in my mind like a nightmare. Caleb's horse bucking wildly, the crowd's gasps, the ambulance sirens fatting into the night. Travis, wide-eyed and tearful, clinging to me at the hospital. "Daddy's gone to heaven, isn't he?" he'd whispered. From then on, it was just us. I threw myself into the ranch, teaching Travis to mend fences, brand calves during roundup season, and navigate the harsh winters when blizzards howled like banshees. As a teen, Travis changed. He devoured books on computers, dreaming of Silicon Valley while I worried about hay yields. "Mom, this place is stuck in the past," he'd argue over dinner, plates of venison stew steaming on the table. I'd counter with tales of resilience, but his eyes glazed over. Subplots intertwined our lives with the community. Annual barn dances at the Grange Hall, where neighbors like the Thompsons two-stepped under string lights, or helping the Larsons during calving season when their herd faced disease outbreaks. One stormy evening, as sleet pelted the windows, I sat by the fire reflecting on Travis's call. Hurt festered, but so did understanding. He'd always been ambitious, perhaps inheriting Caleb's daring spirit. Yet he'd forgotten the lessons of humility the land taught. I pulled out old photo albums, fingers tracing images of us three, Travis on Caleb's shoulders, overlooking the Badlands where ancient fossils hid in the rock. A knock interrupted my reverie. It was Jeb Thompson, hat in hand, snow melting on his boots. "Ellie heard about the land sale. That boy of yours, reckless, need help with the chores?" We shared whiskey by the hearth, his gruff voice revealing his own losses, a daughter who'd moved to the city, never looking back. "Families like these roots," he said, gesturing to the gnarled cottonwood outside. "They twist, but they hold." As he left, I felt a surge of emotion, loneliness mingled with determination. The envelope in the safe called to me, a secret weapon. I'd let Travis chase his dreams, but when they crumbled, I'd be here, teaching him that true wealth lay in the soil, the seasons, and the bonds we nurtured. Outside, the northern lights danced faintly, a rare spectacle that Caleb had called heaven's fireworks. I smiled through tears, whispering, "Watch over us, love." Spring arrived in fits and starts, melting snow revealing muddy trails and the first green shoots pushing through the earth. Hayes Hollow buzzed with renewal, lambs bleating in the pens, irrigation ditches gurgling with runoff from the distant Rockies. I spent days on horseback, herding cattle to higher pastures where wild grasses flourished under endless blue skies. The air hummed with bees among blooming chokecherries, and hawks circled overhead, scouting for prey. Ranch life demanded vigilance, fixing pumps that failed after winter freezes, vaccinating livestock against diseases that could wipe out a herd overnight. The betrayal from Travis lingered like a shadow. Internal thoughts plagued me. Had I failed as a mother? Raised him to value innovation over inheritance, reflections turned to the envelope. I'd opened it years ago after Caleb's death in the dim light of our bedroom. His handwriting bold and familiar. "Ellie, if the ranch ever falters, this is our ace. Oil rights deeded to us. Geologists say millions beneath the surface. Use wisely." I'd consulted a lawyer quietly, confirming its value, but buried it deep, fearing it would change us. Now, with half the land gone, sold to some developer, no doubt, I rode to the old homestead site, a crumbling cabin where Caleb's family had settled in the 1800s. Flashbacks assaulted me, young Travis playing there, pretending to be a cowboy, while Caleb shared stories of homesteading hardships, blizzards that buried wagons, droughts that starved families. "This land tests you, son," Caleb would say, "but it rewards the steadfast." Tension built as I dealt with ranch problems. The remaining land bordered a creek prone to flooding. Last week's rains had washed out a bridge isolating part of the pasture. I called on neighbors for help. The Larsons lent tractors, and we spent a grueling day rebuilding, mud caking our clothes. "Heard about Travis," Mrs. Larson said over sandwiches at lunch. "Kids these days, city lights blind 'em." Her words stung, but community events like the upcoming spring fair offered solace. I'd enter my prize quilt, a patchwork of memories sewn from Caleb's shirts. Emotions churned. Anger at Travis's greed, grief for lost land, but a strategic calm. I'd pretend poverty, let him learn humility the hard way. Dialogues in my mind rehearsed future confrontations. "You thought you could discard this life?" I'd say, but for now, silence. One evening, as the sun dipped behind purple mountains, I sat on the porch with a cup of herbal tea, watching fireflies emerge. A subplot unfolded when young ranch hand Miguel, hired seasonally, shared his own story over dinner. "My parents lost their farm in Mexico to debt. I send money home." His resilience mirrored mine, sparking reflections on legacy. Travis had forgotten that. I decided to survey the oil potential discreetly. A geologist friend from Billings visited, posing as a birdwatcher. "Ellie, it's real, black gold under there," he confirmed, eyes wide. "Worth millions indeed," but I swore him to secrecy. As he left, a storm brewed, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Rain pelted the tin roof that night, lulling me to sleep with dreams of Caleb. "Protect our boy," he seemed to say. The next day, community tension rose at the co-op meeting. Developers eyed our valley for subdivisions, threatening the ranching way. Jeb stood up. "We fight this, our roots are here." Cheers erupted, but I stayed quiet, the envelope my hidden armor. Travis's actions had ignited a fire. I'd let it burn him before revealing the truth. Internal resolve hardened. This was for his growth, for our family's redemption. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, Travis Hayes chased his tech utopia under California's relentless sun. The contrast to Montana was stark. No vast prairies here, just concrete jungles of glass towers and buzzing highways. At 38, he lived in a cramped San Francisco apartment, rent devouring his savings, surrounded by coders and entrepreneurs in hoodies, sipping lattes at trendy cafes. His startup, Agri-Tech AI, promised to revolutionize farming with drones and algorithms. Ironic, given he'd sold family land to fund it. Days blurred into coding marathons at co-working spaces, fluorescent lights humming overhead. "This app will optimize crop yields globally," he'd pitch to investors in sleek boardrooms overlooking the Bay Area's foggy bridges. But beneath the bravado, doubts crept in. Internal thoughts. Was this worth betraying Mom? Flashbacks to childhood, helping her bale hay in summer heat, the satisfaction of a hard day's work. He dismissed it as backward, but now, amid venture capital sharks, he missed the simplicity. His life was a whirlwind, networking events at rooftop bars where deals were sealed over craft beers. "Travis, your vision's gold," a VC said, but funding rounds dragged, burning through the ranch sale proceeds. Subplots included romantic entanglements, a fleeting affair with colleague Lena, whose ambition matched his, ending in arguments over work-life balance. "You're always chasing the next round," she'd accuse. As months passed, failure loomed. The app glitched during DMOS, competitors surged ahead. Debt-mounted credit cards maxed, loans from shady lenders. Emotions peaked, frustration in late-night rants to friends, "I left everything for this." Reflections on his father's death haunted him, Caleb's rodeo risk mirroring his own gamble. Dialogues with Mom were sparse, her voice strained on calls. "How's the ranch holding?" he'd ask vaguely. "Fine," she'd lie, her poverty pretense beginning. One pivotal night, at a tech conference in Palo Alto, palms sweaty under stage lights, his pitch bombed. Investors walked out. "Overhyped," one muttered. Travis stumbled to a bar, ordering whiskey that burned like regret. "What have I done?" he whispered, staring at his phone. A photo of Hayes Hollow popped up, snowy fields from last winter. Homesickness hit hard. Back in his apartment, amid pizza boxes and code printouts, the crash came. The startup folded, creditors called relentlessly. Humiliation washed over him. "Mom, I need help," he finally texted, but no reply. Pretending poverty, a leaner let him stew. Travis's character arc bent, from arrogant innovator to broken dreamer. He sold his gadgets, packed a bag, and bought a bus ticket home, the Golden Gate fatting in the rear view. Summer scorched Hayes Hollow, heat waves shimmering over parched fields where grass crackled underfoot. I battled drought, hauling water from the well to thirsty gardens, tomatoes wilting despite my efforts. The landscape baked, cracked earth along the creek beds, dust devils swirling like omens. Chores intensified, rotating pastures to prevent overgrazing, battling pests that ravaged the alfalfa. Nights brought relief, stars brilliant in the ink-black sky, but worries kept me awake. Ranch problems mounted. The sold land now hosted surveyors, staking for subdivisions that threatened our water rights. Neighbors rallied at a town hall meeting, voices raised in the stuffy community center. "This development will ruin us," Jeb boomed. I spoke up. "We fought worse, remember the '90s flood?" Dialogues revealed tensions. Some favored selling out, others clung to tradition. Subplots wove in, helping the Larsons with a barn fire, flames licking the night sky as we formed a bucket brigade. "Thank you, Ellie," Mrs. Larson wept, hugging me. It strengthened bonds, but exhaustion grew. Internal emotions. Resentment toward Travis festered, mixed with longing for his return. Reflections on Caleb. He'd know what to do, I'd think, visiting his grave on a hill overlooking the ranch, wild roses blooming nearby. Flashbacks to Travis's childhood, teaching him to fish in the river, laughter echoing as he reeled in his first trout. "Mom, this is the best," he'd exclaim. Now, those memories fueled my resolve to teach humility. A community event, the annual rodeo, brought levity. I volunteered, judging pie contests amid carnival smells of popcorn and cotton candy. But tension built, rumors of foreclosure on my remaining land spread by developers. "Fight it, Ellie," Miguel urged over fence repairs. As harvest approached, golden wheat swaying in the breeze, I pretended poverty in sparse calls with Travis. "Barely scraping by," I'd say, voice steady. His silicon failure was evident in his tone, desperation creeping in. Climax neared, my heart ached, but this was necessary. Autumn leaves turned fiery red and gold, carpeting the trails as winds heralded winter's approach. Hayes Hollow prepared for the cold, stacking firewood, winterizing the barn where horses nickered softly. I mended quilts by the fire, stitches pulling together fragments of life. Emotions swirled, anticipation mixed with dread as Travis's failure unfolded from afar. He arrived unannounced, his rental car kicking up dust on the gravel drive. Thin and haggard, eyes shadowed by defeat. "Mom," he croaked, stepping out. I stood on the porch, arms crossed. "Travis." Inside, over coffee, dialogues unpacked conflicts. I messed up. The startup tanked, debts everywhere. "Can I stay?" His voice cracked, revealing vulnerability. I nodded, but coldly. "Help with chores. We're poor now, thanks to you." Days blurred into labor. Travis, unused to it, struggled with baling hay, blisters forming on city-soft hands. Internal thoughts. Shame burned him. How did I forget this? Flashbacks to Dad's lessons. "Work builds character, son." Subplots, neighbors eyed him warily at a harvest festival, bonfires crackling under starry skies. Jeb confronted, "You hurt your ma deep." Travis nodded, humility dawning. Ranch issues persisted. A sick calf required vet calls, straining our budget. I watched him crash emotionally, pretending struggle. Tension peaked in arguments. "Why didn't you stop me?" he yelled. "You needed to learn," I replied calmly. As snow flurried, redemption glimmered. Travis reflected, roots over riches. Winter storms raged, blizzards isolating Hayes Hollow in a white cocoon. We hunkered down, stoking the stove as winds howled. Chores were perilous, breaking paths through drifts, ensuring animals survived. Travis adapted, his silicon polish fatting into ranch grit. Climax built during a fierce nor'easter. Power out, we sat by candlelight. "Mom, I'm sorry," he confessed, tears flowing. "I threw away our legacy." Emotions raw, guilt, regret, I revealed the envelope. "Your dad left this, oil rights millions." Shock widened his eyes. "Why hide it?" Dialogues deepened. "To teach humility. Riches without roots mean nothing." Flashbacks, Caleb's wisdom shared. Subplots resolved, neighbors visited post-storm, bonds strengthening. Travis's development, from broken to enlightened. I get it now, he said. Spring bloomed anew, thawing the land into verdant life. With oil proceeds wisely invested, we transformed Hayes Hollow into a community farm. Fields teemed with shared crops, neighbors collaborating and planting bees amid buzzing pollinators. Travis led workshops, blending tech with tradition, drones monitoring soil. Character arc complete, humble, appreciative. Mom, this is real innovation, he'd say. Daily life harmonized, chores with purpose, evenings reflecting on growth. Subplots flourished, community events like farm-to-table dinners under twilight skis. Emotions, fulfillment, peace. Roots run deeper, I whispered to Caleb's memory as we watched sunsets paint the Montana horizon.